There is a silent force inside you, constantly shaping your reality without your awareness. It holds all the parts of yourself you've hidden, denied, or pushed away, your cravings, instincts, fears, thoughts, and traits your ego refuses to acknowledge. Carl Jung named this force the shadow, and ignoring it doesn't make it vanish. In fact, the more you suppress it, the stronger it becomes, silently guiding your reactions, decisions, and how you perceive the world. You judge others, criticize their flaws, and feel frustrated by behaviors you find unbearable. But what you often miss is that this frustration isn't truly about them, it's about you. It's your shadow demanding to be seen. Every flaw you point out in someone else reflects a part of you that remains unacknowledged. And until you stop projecting your darkness outward, you'll stay trapped in an unconscious loop that controls your life without your consent. This isn't just unfortunate, it's inevitable. The parts of yourself you refuse to face take over from the shadows. What you despise most in others may be exactly what you'll unknowingly become. Not because you're evil or weak, but because denying your shadow is like signing a silent agreement. An agreement to be ruled by what you fear to confront. This video is for the brave, for those tired of blaming others and ready to begin the hardest yet most liberating journey, meeting their own soul. Don't expect an easy road. You'll have to face your darkest fears. You'll need to admit feelings you've always found shameful. Accept impulses you wished weren't real. But the reward is priceless: emotional freedom, personal growth, true maturity. You weren't meant to be at war with yourself. That shadow, the one sabotaging and scaring you, must be embraced, not exiled. The choice is in your hands. Face what hides within you, or be ruled by what you refuse to see. Today, I'll guide you in breaking the cycle. But understand this: no one walks into their inner darkness and returns unchanged. The shadow isn't what many think it is. It's not just your dark side. It's not a demon to destroy, nor a curse to battle. Jung saw it as essential to the human psyche, a hidden world where the parts of you society, family, and even your own ideals told you to bury still live. As a child, you learned what behaviors were praised and what were punished. You smiled when you wanted to cry. You stayed polite when you wanted to scream. You buried your anger, desire, fear, sensuality, and sensitivity. Everything that didn't match the mask you were told to wear was cast into the basement of your mind. That basement, a forgotten collection of your disowned self, is what Jung called the shadow. But here's the truth few dare to face. Your shadow isn't just filled with darkness. It also contains your buried creativity, your lost passion, your silenced courage, and your forgotten sense of wonder. The shadow holds both your destructive urges and your ability to grow and evolve. Choosing to ignore it is choosing to live only a part of who you are. But when you integrate it, you embrace your whole being. Understanding the shadow means realizing that being human isn't just about light, it's also about darkness. And turning your back on that darkness is like cutting yourself off from your own inner power. Inside the shadow lie the keys to knowing yourself, growing emotionally, and becoming truly mature. But those keys don't come easily. They require the courage to look within without pretending, without blaming, without feeling sorry for yourself. Without facing your shadow, your inner world becomes unstable. The energy you repress turns toxic and shows up as anxiety, depression, anger outbursts, compulsive behaviors, a self-sabotage, and a deep emptiness. Avoiding the shadow doesn't make it go away. It just makes it show up in harsher, more painful ways. And this is where emotional projection begins. When you don't recognize your own shadow, your unconscious will try to make you see it by reflecting it in the people around you. In the next part, we'll dive into how this projection plays out in everyday life and how it constantly reveals what you're trying hardest to ignore. When you're disconnected from your inner self, the world becomes a mirror, but not a clear one. It's warped by your unconscious mind. Carl Jung described projection as the act of throwing your hidden inner parts onto other people. You don't see them in yourself, so your mind casts them outside. That's why certain behaviors in others bother you more than they should. You react in ways that feel too intense, irrational, or confusing. Projection is extremely common, but few people understand it. You might feel angry at someone for being arrogant, but deep down, it's your own repressed desire to feel confident. You criticize someone for being selfish when, in truth, you've spent your life ignoring your own needs and bottling up frustration. You get annoyed at those who express themselves openly, maybe because you were taught early on that showing emotions is weak. The people around you become actors in a play written by your unconscious. That's what projection really is. It's not something you choose, it's a defense mechanism. Your ego wants to protect the image you've built of yourself. So everything that doesn't match that image, everything that challenges your idea of who you are, gets pushed out onto others. And suddenly, you start seeing enemies where there are only reflections. Think about it. How many relationships have fallen apart because you didn't see that it wasn't about the other person, but about how they triggered your shadow? How many times have you walked away from someone without knowing why, simply because they made you feel something you couldn't explain? How often have you hated someone who unknowingly showed you a part of yourself you were desperate to hide? Projection makes the world feel like a war zone, but that battle is happening inside you. It blinds you, holds you back, and stops you from growing. There's only one way to end the cycle. Take ownership of your feelings. Ask yourself with brutal honesty, what exactly about this person is making me feel this way and why? But be warned, this path isn't easy. It means giving up the comfort of blaming others and starting the hard work of self-exploration. And this is where true transformation begins, when you stop running and finally listen to what your shadow is trying to tell you. Because if you have the courage to sit with that discomfort, you'll see that the pain of projection is actually your soul's invitation to become something more. In the following section, we'll look at what happens when you turn down this invitation. What happens when you go through life avoiding your shadow, only to unknowingly become the very thing you criticize in others. Ignoring your shadow is like trying to contain a wildfire by shutting your eyes. You can pretend nothing's wrong. You might convince yourself the issue isn't yours. You might even come up with clever ideas to justify your denial. But the fire keeps spreading, and the more you choose not to see it, the more it consumes your true self. When you push your hidden parts onto the outside world, you lose connection with your own reality. You end up fighting false battles, seeing threats where there are only mirrors, attacking in others what you silently fear within. What you fail to see, or refuse to admit, is that what you despise around you slowly shapes who you become inside. Carl Jung said it clearly. What we avoid dealing with consciously shows up in our lives as fate. If you ignore your suppressed anger, it becomes resentment and passive aggression. If you pretend envy doesn't exist, it turns into quiet bitterness. If you bury your ambition, it festers into frustration and self-pity. Over time, you stop being the person you thought you were and slowly become the very thing you claim to stand against. That's how moral hypocrites are born, those who loudly shame others for impulses they secretly indulge in. That's how self-sacrificing helpers emerge, resenting those who never repay their efforts. That's how seemingly kind people become controlling in their homes, workplaces, and relationships, crushed by the weight of what they never dared to face. You can spend your entire life running, explaining things away, blaming others. But the truth remains. What you deny inside yourself doesn't disappear. It simply finds new disguises. And the more you avoid it, the more powerful it becomes, until one day, there's no real line between who you thought you were and what you once despised. When you don't face your shadow, it quietly takes over. It ruins your connections, blocks your dreams, weakens your strengths, and breaks every step you try to take toward a better life. And all the while, blinded by pride, you'll keep blaming the outside world, never realizing the true enemy has always been inside. But there's a way out. There's a path where this dark force stops tearing you down and begins to strengthen you. A path that turns poison into healing, hate into awareness, and shame into real inner power. And that path begins with one conscious decision to face the shadow and bring it into the light of your awareness. In the next part, we'll explore how this transformation begins. You'll learn what it truly means to start integrating your shadow and what it takes to reclaim your mind and your life. Shadow integration isn't easy. It's not symbolic or surface level. It's a deep, painful, but deeply transformational journey. It's a choice to consciously walk into the hidden corners of your soul, facing everything you've spent your life running from. The first step is brutal honesty. You must admit that darkness lives inside you. No excuses, no overthinking, no sugarcoating. There's anger in you. There's jealousy. There are controlling urges, a wish for revenge, fear of failure, pride, ego, and also hidden talents, buried courage, and sleeping potential. Denying any of this gives your shadow more power. The second step is conscious observation. The shadow shows up in your strongest, most out-of-place emotional reactions when you feel sudden hate for someone without knowing why, when you explode over something small, when you feel shame for being yourself. That's the shadow speaking. Learn to observe without judging, without defending yourself. Just watch it. Just admit it's there. The third step is kind acceptance. Integrating the shadow doesn't mean giving in or making excuses for harmful actions. It means accepting that you're fully human, both light and dark, both strong and weak. Real emotional maturity only comes through this kind of acceptance. Without it, you're stuck in a losing battle, cutting off important parts of yourself to fit an impossible image of perfection. But this work is hard to do alone. You might need help through honest reflection, studying your dreams, paying attention to your emotional patterns, and most importantly, working with a therapist trained in Jungian psychology. A good therapist knows how to guide you through the unconscious, spot your projections, and uncover the patterns that keep you stuck. Real transformation happens when you turn shame into strength, when your anger becomes healthy assertiveness, when your vanity shifts into real self-respect, when your envy points you toward your own growth. The shadow doesn't have to destroy you. If you face it, it becomes the base for your freedom. But don't get fooled. Shadow work never ends. There's no finish line where you become perfect or pure. The human mind is always changing, and new shadows keep showing up. The goal isn't to get rid of darkness, but to stay wary, alert, and whole. And once you start working with your shadow, something amazing happens. Your relationship with the world shifts. Emotional projection fades. Your connections feel more real. You stop reacting from pain and start acting from inner strength and balance. In the next part, we'll look at this visible change, how integrating your shadow not only shifts your inner world, but also shapes how you show up in the world, more honest, more grounded, and, most importantly, free. When you begin shadow work, the world seems different. But what really changed was you. What once irritated you about others now makes sense. What used to trigger hatred, jealousy, or judgment now brings empathy, clarity, and peace. You stop seeing enemies and start seeing people, just as imperfect and complex as you are. Projection loses its grip because you've seen the root of your pain. You no longer have to throw your emotions at the outside world. You no longer need to blame others to avoid your own truth. You learn to hold the mirror to your own soul and bravely ask, what does this reaction say about me? This is deep change. It's not just a behavior shift. It's a change in how you see things. The integrated shadow gives you something that the ego alone can't: balance. A balance that isn't fragile like pretending, or tense like pushing things down, but solid like a rock that's weathered many storms. This balance shows in your real life. Your relationships improve because you no longer seek the approval in others that you once lacked within yourself. Criticism doesn't hurt you anymore because you don't need to appear perfect. You become more real because you no longer need to hide who you are. You become stronger because you stop fighting against yourself. And this change doesn't go unnoticed. People around you will feel the difference. Some will come closer, recognizing a more genuine, secure, and vibrant energy in you. Others will pull away, unable to deal with someone who no longer plays the unconscious games of projection and blame. This is part of the process. Integrating the shadow also helps clear the energy around you. Carl Jung taught us that no one becomes enlightened by imagining only light, but by making the darkness conscious. True maturity comes from bravely facing your own soul. True strength comes when you stop running from yourself. But there's one last piece we need to cover. The real challenge is walking this path alone. No matter how strong you are, sometimes the weight of your shadow is too much to carry without support. There are tools, techniques, and methods that can help guide you safely and effectively through this process of self-discovery and integration. In the next and final part, we will discuss this: how to ask for help, how to strengthen your internal process, and most importantly, how to keep evolving without losing your true self. You spent your life trying to hide your flaws, trying to meet other people's expectations, and adjusting to fit molds that were never made for you. You tried to erase feelings, inner truths, and impulses, thinking it would make you stronger, more accepted, and more correct. But all this did was feed the shadow. It only gave power to what you feared. The truth is, you cannot find peace while at war with yourself. Integrating the shadow isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. It's about reclaiming the parts of your soul that you abandoned. Not so they can control you, but so you can understand them and bring them into your conscious awareness. It's the opposite of repressing them. It's emotional responsibility. It's psychic maturity. It's true inner freedom. You don't have to stay trapped in destructive patterns. You don't have to live reacting automatically to everything and everyone. You don't have to feel like a slave to your emotions or toxic relationships that make you believe the problem is always outside of you. You don't have to feel divided or exhausted. There's a path ahead, difficult, yes, but absolutely life-changing. It will help you become someone who lives with authenticity, balance, and most importantly, awareness. But no one walks this path alone. If you're ready to go deeper into this journey, consider seeking therapeutic support. Analytical psychology based on Jung's work offers real, practical resources for this inner journey. A good therapist doesn't tell you what to do. They help you listen to what you've been avoiding hearing. And this listening can change everything. Now, I want to hear from you. Which part of this video made you reflect the most? What made you think? Which shadow did you recognize, even just for a second? Write it in the comments, not just to interact, but to express what you might have never said out loud. This is the first step to bring the unconscious into the light, naming what was once just a feeling. And if this video resonated with you, don't ignore it. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This is not just content. It's a space for those who want to dive deeper into the soul. And don't forget to watch the next video. It's just as important as this one. Every piece of this journey matters, and you're not here by chance. The shadow only controls those who fear to look inside. You no longer need to live in fear.